everybody, and welcome back to this week's Stoke. I love this off-season series that we've been doing, and it wouldn't be the Stoke if we didn't talk to some of our athletes. And I'm so excited to have Storm Klomhaus on here today. She's an incredible skier with an incredible story, but also somebody who's faced a lot of adversity in terms of injury. So with our off-season series, I really kind of wanted to hone in on some of the pieces from our industry experts, like fueling and strength and conditioning training, and of course, muscle recovery. But now we're going to talk to an athlete who's seen how all of these pieces are really key in trying to get back to snow and back to the goals when you have an injury that does set you back a little bit. And so, Storm, thank you so much for taking the time to come on. Your story, I think, is so powerful and so influential to such young kids who might be battling injury and coming back from injury as well. So I think it'll be great to dive into some of your advice from how you've had a couple of injuries that we can talk about, and also just your most recent one that you're dealing with right now.
Yeah, thank you, Parker. I always love coming on your show, so thank you for having me.
Well, let's kind of get started. For anybody who doesn't know you, it is always fun for me to bring my friends on the show because I do know you. But for everybody else in the ski community that may not know who Storm Klomhaus is, first of all, she's going to be somebody to watch, guys. She's had a really cool career where she's been able to be extremely fast and then has a setback with injury, and then really even faster and then a setback from injury. And so right now, I think, Storm, if you could talk a little bit about who you are as a ski racer, and then just kind of hit on what those injuries have been, as it has been 3 knee injuries.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm Storm. I skied for the University of Denver. That's when I first blew out my knee, unfortunately, and that I had a MRSA infection. So that led to like 5 surgeries in that round. And then I graduated and luckily made the US ski team. And unfortunately, like after 3 months on the team, blew out the same knee for a second time and did a couple of other things. So it led to another 4 surgeries this year. So now it's ending up being about a 12 or 13 month recovery, but I'm about 10 months through now, almost 11. So like almost there, but it's actually gone by a lot quicker than I thought it was gonna. So that's a nice little surprise.
No, for sure. And I think it'll be interesting too to talk about how these knee injuries have been different and how they've been the same. And before we kind of dive into that, I think a question that a lot of people get that they don't always know the answer to is, what kind of graft did you use in your ACL? You get a lot of options, and when you're young and you hurt your knee ski racing, like that's a pretty daunting thing to think about. And so if you can explain what the different types of grafts are and then what you used and why, I think that's kind of a little bit of a scientific piece to it. And I know it's a personal opinion, but it is always helpful to hear what other people are using.
Yeah, for sure. So this is my 3rd ACL reconstruction. So first one, I used hamstring graft from the same leg I tore my ACL on. Second one, I used hamstring from the other leg. And then I had so much damage on the one knee this time that we decided to use patella graft from my other leg this time. Honestly, I'd say hamstring was like a breeze compared to the patella graft. The patella graft was pretty painful, but it's also supposed to be a little bit stronger. So like if I cannot do this again and like go through a little bit more pain, that's like totally fine. And I hear around like 9 months to the patella graft, really like the pain just kind of, in most cases, just disappears. Like you wake up one day and it's just gone. So I'm waiting for that to happen. Hasn't happened yet, but like honestly, that patella graft on my other leg is like the least of my pain right now. I'm definitely still having a lot more in my surgical aid. So I'm really glad I did it on the other leg, because I can't imagine putting all of this onto one knee, you know?
Yeah, no, it's definitely an interesting concept, and you do get those choices. And I guess if you've had multiple ACL injuries, you start to run out of choices of places that you can take from to fix the ACL. But I do think that that's helpful, because sometimes people really just don't know what to use and why they're using one piece versus another with the patella or the hamstring. So that's kind of why I wanted to ask just what you use to kind of fix your knee, and basically both times. And so you've used both, which means that you have a pretty solid opinion on both of those procedures.
Yeah, for sure. And I think even the hamstring, I did love it. And like it lasted me 4 years in between like tearing it the first time and the second time. And I don't think it was a result of the graft choice. I think it was just perfect storm of like making just a big turn and everything caught just right. And it just went really quick. So I don't think it was a choice of the graft. I really, really enjoyed my hamstring grafts. They were, like I said, a little bit more or less painful, but hopefully this patella one will like last me the rest of my life now. So
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, like you said, it is something that really doesn't, it affects people differently. ACL tears do just happen sometimes. And so it doesn't have to do with the graft. It just is part of the sport that we're living in. And why I think it's so important to talk through some of these like recovery techniques and tactics. So kind of moving into more of the recovery aspect of it and really that focus of off-season training, I kind of want to dive into how recovery goes in the gym. So that being said, I think it really starts out with you get hurt, you get healed. Do you find yourself going to the gym every day trying to build back either strength in the injury leg, strength in the leg that actually wasn't hurt? What is kind of your mindset as you're trying to get back onto snow during this recovery period?
yeah, I mean, like that's the toughest part, isn't it? Because we all want to just show up in the gym and work as hard as we possibly can to get back on snow. But a lot of times that's not like the smartest way to go about it. Like, especially I'm learning like in your tendons, when you take the grafts from the tendons, like those tendons need 9 months to heal. Like there's nothing you can do. Like you can do tendon protocol, you can do stuff like that, but there's nothing more you can, it's just biological. It takes time. And I'm learning that even like on my left leg where I didn't have any grafts this time. I just still have a lot of pain and it's just super biological. But yeah, right now we go to the gym, or I go to the gym every single day, but like it's not like it's high intensity every day, you know, it's like very slow, long sessions, a lot of BFR, like blood flow restriction. If you guys have done any of that, you know, it sucks and it's terrible and it's very tedious and slow, and like you don't really feel like you're doing anything. You sit there and cut off all the blood in your leg and then do like calf raises without any weight, and it kills. So it's like it's not like it's very intense at all. A lot of it is like just neurocog, so neurocognition. So we're just catching balls on one leg like for an hour, like so like really boring stuff. So like I think that's what I've realized with the second round of injuries. The first one was just isolated ACL. Now I have a couple other things like meniscus and a cartilage transplant and others, things like that. So first time round, like I could hit it a little bit harder and I came back a little bit quicker. And I think this time just realizing that it takes time to come back and you have to have that patience has really been a big lesson for me this time around.
Well, you hit on the crucial topic here of returning from injury, which is patience. I think a lot of time, especially as ski racers, we're so used to doing everything for max capacity and as fast as possible. And so it's a really hard mindset to be able to switch from going go, 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 go all the time to realizing your body does need to heal and it does require time, and you do need to have it be a slow and intricate process to make sure that you're healing to the best of your ability. So I think that it sounds like you've learned kind of the key piece of recovery, even though I'm guessing it is a little challenging on the mental side. And I think that that's kind of a piece that we can jump into now after you go into a little more detail on BFR, just because I think that's going to be a pretty foreign concept to the community. But if you could just explain why you're cutting off your blood circulation on your injured knee, that might be helpful, just so we don't lose anybody on that one.
Yeah, so BFR, blood flow restriction, you basically limit the amount of oxygen to your muscles. And I don't know the exact science behind it, but essentially it helps you build muscle without having to lift weight. So we usually do like a 6-week period right after surgery, or about like 2 weeks after surgery. So your incisions are healed. So you're not like making the incisions, irritating them at all. But you then just strap a tourniquet around the top of your leg, and you we have a nice machine here, luckily, but the machine like pressurizes your leg and to a certain point. It's very controlled, so like it's a very safe process, but still your brain thinks that your leg's gonna fall off, is like, so you the whole time. I specifically, like compared to other athletes I know, do not deal with BFR well. Like I sweat the whole time and I like get the chills when I take it off. Like my brain really thinks my leg's gonna fall off, even though like as soon as you pull the plug, as soon as like it's very fun, you do these exercises for 30 on, 30 off, and you go and go. and then everyone just like rips the tube out as soon as they're done because everyone just wants it off. But as soon as you release that pressure, you're back to normal and you're totally fine. Like your leg returns to color and everything's fine. But essentially it helps you build muscle without having to lift weight at all. So that's something very utilized before like the weightlifting strength period.
No, thank you. And just so everyone knows at home, this is something that they have people helping them do. Please do not just tie a tourniquet around your leg to try and give yourself a homemade BFR setup. That is not what we're talking about. It's all about control and patience and really making these really smart decisions about healing. So that's kind of the point there. I did want to explain the program of BFR just because it is a really cool science that people are using to help with injury, but not something for you to try on your own. Yeah, definitely not. And by the sounds of it either, it doesn't sound like it's very fun. So might be something to avoid.
Yeah. I stopped it even a little bit early just because like I said, I personally just handled it really poorly. My brain just did not like it. So I stopped it a little bit before that 6-week mark, but it still ended up. My first ACL, I didn't even have BFR and I returned even quicker than I am now. So by no means is it necessary, but definitely something I've been doing a lot this time with the length and extent of my injury.
Yeah, for sure. And so now kind of thinking again about other exercises and things that you can do if you don't have a facility that's helping you with all of your rehab and stuff like that. Is balance one of the key features for trying to get back from recovery and from injury? Or is it more like re-strengthening? Is it working on your upper body and your core and the things that aren't injured? Like what is kind of the key piece to training when you are an injured athlete and you're trying to get back?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a balance between, all of those. I think like the balance piece and the single leg strength piece go hand in hand a lot. Like I personally am still just working on those pieces because I don't have nearly as much strength in my surgical leg as my other leg, and therefore just balance and everything's just a little bit off. So like I think it goes really hand in hand. Then like you said, without being able to do everything I usually can, it's a lot of upper body, a lot of core, which is great. But like, yeah, it's really tough. Like I said, it's a very slow process. I need to show up to the gym and remember that, I don't need to hit it hard today. And like, it's just one step at a time, I guess. And everything will come together at some point, as long as I'm working on all those little things throughout the day and weekly, and I'm just being consistent about working on those little things and take it step by step. I know eventually it'll get there.
I think you just hit on another really important piece to injury, and that's consistency. I think the idea of being consistent with your training and your recovery, along with that patience and knowing that over time it will heal, those two pieces together will probably lead to finding your success on snow and a good recovered from injury body. And so with that being said, I think learning that mindset of how you became patient and how you were consistent with your training is kind of where I want to take the rest of the interview, because I think with injury, a lot of time your brain sometimes hurts more than the ailment. And so I do want to ask you, with your injuries and kind of how your career has gone, how do you mentally fire yourself up to come back from them? And for you, you've always come back better. And that's a hard thing to do. So how have you used your brain to really push yourself to make the recovery and then make the gain?
Yeah, I mean, I think, like you said, I luckily did come back and I was able to come back better. And like, I think that's just objectively, like I watched my video before, especially like my first injury. I watched my video before my first injury. And then when I got back on snow, and it was just a little bit more stacked, it was a little bit more fundamentally just better. And I think that's something, this injury has been really helpful to remember. Like, okay, just because you get injured does not mean that like it's over, you're done, you're not going to be the same skier you are. I think you can come back much better than you were. And luckily I have that first injury to like pull from and know that that's possible. But personally on it, I think a lot of that came from watching a lot of video when I was hurt, and not just of me, but like people who were better than me. And I think it just kept the fire alive a little bit. And I think when you take away something that you love and you realize how much like you took it for granted almost before you got hurt, and how much you didn't appreciate how much you get to do it. For me personally, that was enough to kind of keep the fire burning and stay engaged in my rehab and stay excited. But like, yeah, this is a much longer process than the first one too. So I constantly have to remind myself that it's long and it's hard, but like I can get back and be better than I was before I got hurt this time around too.
It's such an incredible strength to be able to keep yourself focused and have that fire burning inside of you. And I think that that's what's so cool, is that even though you'd face this adversity and you've had these injuries, you still have the goals, you're still climbing to them, and you're still trying to reach them. And so it's like every time that you're on this path, you're like, okay, we're one step closer, one step closer. And yes, it may take a lot of months, but you continue to push yourself to get to that place where you are going to succeed when you're on snow. And so I think that that mindset is so crucial for athletes who are facing either their first injury or now they've faced multiple like you, where they can hear that it's okay. Like, yeah, it sucks. Injury sucks, but you can get through it and you can come through it on the other end. And from that, you've learned so many lessons through that months of injury, that you've come out stronger, even just mentally from it and as a person and your character build. And so I think that that's a really cool piece that you can take away from injury as well, that, yeah, no, it's not ideal and nobody is really looking to be injured, but there are gains that you can make as an athlete and in your mental strength so that you are more successful when you come out of it.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I think I remember especially a lot in my first injury, like I think that was the general perception of injury is like, you might not ever be as good as you were when you got hurt. I remember that was like a huge fear when my very first injury, and I think a lot of people just believe that's just how it goes. Like if you get injured, you probably won't be the same skier ever again. And I think that's just completely wrong. And you might change, but like you can absolutely change for the better. So yeah, I'm very passionate about that point, because it bugs me a lot when people talk about injury in such a negative way when it can be a positive. You're right, it's not fun. It's not a good thing. Everyone's super bummed when it happens, but like you can turn it into a good thing for sure.
Yeah, no, and I think that you just hit the nail on the head right there. Like that is kind of the most important part of it, is we've had this mindset that injury changes you for the worse. And I think luckily this is why I'm sharing your story, is that you can show people that, again, you can come out on the other side and be ready to attack the next part of your career just as you were right before you were injured. And so that's what we're trying to change here, that it's showing that with the work, the patience, the dedication, and that consistency, you'll be able to make gains when you do come back on the hill. And you did mention a fear. And I think that that word is kind of important when it comes to injury. And basically, as you get right back to going on snow, a pretty common thing is people don't trust their newly healed knee in this case, or whatever they were injured in. They don't fully trust it, or they're scared about doing it again. How do you kind of break through those barriers about when you do return on snow, that you can go full gas again and really just push yourself to the limit, because that's the sport we're in, without being held back by any of those initial injury kind of dilemmas in your head?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think that's probably one of the toughest things. I'd say, returning, knowing what to expect for me, like I said, it's luck. I feel lucky in one way. I've already done this before, but I think just remembering, it almost goes back to that patience piece. Like you don't need to rush into anything. You don't need ski gates before you're ready. You don't need to even make an arcing turn before you're ready. Like my first 8 days on snow, I did it alone. I didn't have anyone helping me with my return to snow. So I really just had no idea what I was doing. But the first 8 days, I really just did sliding turns only. And I just didn't feel ready to arc a ski. It was pretty foreign. It was really scary. I was on new boots and new skis and all that stuff too. But like, it just comes, it's like riding a bike. Like, I think I have to remember that too. Like, we've done this long enough in our life that, like, even though it feels weird, like, it'll come back. I think it just comes back to patience and really trusting what you've done in the past and knowing that you have the ability to do it again. But even if you're not ready to arc a ski, then don't. Like, it's not a big, like, it'll come. One day you will show up and you won't even think about it. You'll just arc a ski and it won't be scary. And I think a lot of that fear just falls away if you give yourself enough time to make those small steps. So that's what I'm hoping for this return to snow process, is like, I'm just not going to put any pressure. I'm not going to put any timeline on it. I'm just going to show up. And if I have pain, then I'm going to pull back a little bit, and it's not that big a deal. I think there's this idea that you have to come back and you have to be really good right away. And I don't think that's true. I think there's lots of time. There's not a time limit on anything. So as long as you have the patience, then it'll all work out and it'll all come back.
Yeah, no, that's huge. And I can imagine, like, that fear is a huge part of that comeback. And it takes a while to break through that barrier, and understanding not to get frustrated is probably a key piece to that. And so I think what you said about just taking your time and not putting a timeline on it, and letting your body kind of dictate through its feelings, through what you know and your technique, that it'll all come together with time. And so I think making sure that you're putting that focus on not getting frustrated when you return right from injury is going to be key in finding that success. So finally, as we've now hit a ton of topics with returning from injury through the physical aspects of it and now the mental aspects of it, I think for you, we kind of just want to hear about what is next. So you're getting close to your coming back from injury. Like you said, you're kind of 75% of the way through recovery. Correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah, we're going to go with that. And so you're getting close to this return on snow. It's so exciting. Are you so excited?
Yeah, I mean, there is a chance still that timeline will be pushed back. So I'm really trying not to get my hopes up, or like, we're planning on like middle of September, go to Europe and do a return to snow thing there with Nina O'Brien. So that'll be really fun to have a buddy. And, it sucks we're both hurt, but like, it is nice to have company and someone who's going through a similar situation. But the plan is like middle of September, but also if I don't meet my testing, or even if like it just doesn't feel right to me, then that might get pushed back. And that's okay. Like I said, I'm really trying not to put a timeline or pressure on myself to meet my expectations of when I should be returning to snow, when I've been off of snow it'll be like 12 and a half months. So yeah, I think like I'm crazy excited. I'm really excited, but just trying to manage my expectations a little bit. Yeah. And like we talked about a little before, just give myself that time, like, and don't push it, because skiing in pain, like, that's just not smart,
No, totally. And I think with that adaptability, we're going to see you when you are on snow, ready to be on snow and ready to make those gains towards your goal again. So I think that that's a great way to look at it. It's such a good outcome. And you have made the most of your recovery. And I think you've probably learned a lot from this injury versus your last injury, is what it sounds like. So they are, in the sense, both ACLs, but they are different, and you learn different things from them. And I think you've grown a lot. So that's really cool as well. But Storm, I can't thank you enough for your time. I love having you on the show. I think you're super influential to all of the next generation of ski racers. So it's very fun to be able to share that story and your growth and your outlook on ski racing with everybody. So thank you again for your time. And to the Sync community, guys, this is super important stuff. Ski racing, yes, we do love it, and it's such a thrilling and exciting sport, but sometimes injury does happen. And it's really that mindset that you keep as you're re-strengthening, healing, finding that patience and consistency in your training, and really just allowing your time for your body to heal and get back to where it wants to be is so crucial. So I hope that you learned something from this. And again, Storm, thank you so much. And we can't wait to continue to cheer you on into the next step of your career.
Thank you, Parker. Thank you so much for having me. Always a pleasure.